Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Metro Inner Development Assessment Panel for Wednesday, the 20th of August, 2025. My name is Karen Hyde. I'm your presiding member and declare the meeting open at 9:34 a.m. In doing so, I would like to acknowledge that we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respects to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panel's Regulations 2011. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of those regulations. Members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'll now introduce the panel members for today's meeting. We have with us furthest to my left, Councillor Glenn Cridland, Local Government DAP Member, City of South Perth. To my immediate left, Eugene Koltas, Deputy Presiding Member, and on screen, Nima Premji, Specialist Member. Item 2, apologies from Councillor Bronwyn Wall, Local Government DAP Member, City of South Perth. Item 3, members on leave of absence, we have none. Item 4, noting of minutes. Minutes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website. We now move to Part B for the City of South Perth item. We are joined as well today by officers from the City, Harry Rosenthal, Scott Van Ireland and Fiona Mullen. We also have applicants and submitters attending, Ben Stonebridge and Tim Dawkins from Urbis, Ben and Ballbar from Transcorp, and Robert Kelly from Sign On. If others are in the room, we will invite them to announce themselves. First of all, however, I'd like to check due consideration, declaration of due consideration. Could panel members duly confirm that they've duly considered all of the documentation contained in Part B of the agenda and Part B related information, noting the R13 response received on the 14th of August? Could I see a show of hands, please? Thank you. Due consideration has been given by all. Disclosures of interest. I haven't at this point received any. Does anybody have a disclosure they wish to make? No. Councillor Cridland, could I check, was this item considered at council?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
That's fine, thank you. So we have no declarations for that part of the meeting. We move then to the item and presentations associated with it for Lot 4, number 58, Mount Henry Road, Salter Point. Proposed use not listed, third-party digital hoarding sign. We have two presentations today from Robert Henderson from Aquinas College and Ben Stonebridge from Urbis. I've allowed each of you 3 minutes. And so I'd therefore encourage you to come to the salient points that you wish us to consider today. Ben, which of you is going first? Is it?
I'll go first. Yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'll let you know if you get over your 3 minutes. And we have all declared that we've read all of the written information that you've provided us. So,
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I'll begin.
Yes, please.
Good morning, DAP members. My name is Ben Stonebridge and I'm a town planner at Urbis. I'm joined here this morning by Robert Henderson, headmaster at Aquinas College. We're also joined by Tim Dawkins from Urbis and Rob Kelly from Sign On, who are here to answer questions. We're disappointed with the RER recommendation for refusal. We have taken a collaborative approach with the city and the applicant has made significant amendments to respond to issues raised during this process. I will briefly address the planning merit of the proposal. The development is typical of advertisement signs located on freeways. These are a common sight across the Perth area. However, critically, all revenue from the third-party advertising content displayed on this sign will fund the Aquinas College bursary programme. This is a significant benefit of the proposal. I will discuss each planning issue in turn. In terms of zoning, the report notes the private community purpose zoning of the site. As mentioned, all revenue from content displayed on the sign will fund the bursary programme. This directly connects the use of the site to the purpose of the zone. During pre-lodgement, the city advised that linking the revenue to the bursary would satisfy them that the development meets the objectives of the zone, provided this was secured within the permission. Later, in response to the RFI, the proposal was further amended so that more than 64% of the sign content will be directly related to the college. This unquestionably links the use of the sign to the school. We therefore strongly believe the proposal meets the objectives of the zone. With regard to local planning policy 7.1 for advertisement signage, the application does seek discretion from this policy. Both signs do exceed the maximum size and height set out within the policy. However, this is a standard size for advertisement signs across the road network, such as those deployed by main roads, for example. In the context of the proposed location, the size of the sign is appropriate. This policy would not apply, for example, where the sign located in the reserve. The development complies with all other requirements of this policy. The discretion from the policy is to ensure that the signs are visible to vehicle users moving along the freeway. In terms of amenity, we disagree that the proposal will undermine the character of the location. In our view, this landscape is dominated by the freeway, the train line, and other freeway signs. The freeway is a visually intrusive piece of significant transport infrastructure, and much vegetation has been cleared in places, which reduces the value of the landscape. All of these factors combine to define the landscape character. A landscape and visual impact assessment has been provided, which confirms this view. This is an appropriate place for signage promoting the school, and we do not believe the sign will harm the amenity of the freeway. With regards to landscaping, Aquinas have agreed to the principle of a condition requiring a landscape strategy to address impacts on adjoining properties and to improve landscaping in general. Importantly, with regard to transport, Main Roads provided an updated response that confirmed there are no traffic safety issues. In summary, we are disappointed by the recommendation given the hard work to respond to issues raised and the significant concessions offered during the application. We believe the merits of the proposed development outweigh any identified impacts, and we therefore hope that DAP can make a positive decision despite the recommendation. We are here to answer any questions from DAP members.
Thank you very much, Ben. If it's acceptable to panel members, I'll ask Robert Henderson to make his presentation as well, and then we can open for questions. So when you're ready.
Thank you. Robert Henderson, Principal of Aquinas College. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly this morning. Aquinas College has 1,360 students growing to 1,380 students in 2026. We offer a variety of bursaries to families who otherwise could not afford to send their boys to Aquinas. The school was established in 1894 and moved to Solder Point in 1938 and has always had a commitment to assist families in need. In fact, the move at that time was largely to accommodate boarding boys from the country, so hence the move out of the city. Our program includes 60 Indigenous students, as the college is committed to providing educational opportunities for Indigenous Australians. College has 200 boarders, so our bursary program extends to city and country families. Our bursary program is means tested to ensure that funds are only applied to families that qualify. All revenue from the proposed digital sign would be directed to our bursary program. The anticipated revenue can make a real difference to families in need and provide provision to assist additional families. The revenue from the sign is important to our bursary program as it will, and it will also allow the possibility of additional new bursaries each year. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentations. I'll now invite panel members to ask questions of yourselves, but also, actually, Ben, could you tell me who else of your team is here available for questions?
Yes, we've got Tim from Urbis and Rob Kelly can sign on.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Benham, I think, is supposed to be online. Benham Bullbar for traffic. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Cridland, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, no.
All right, thank you.
I do.
Member
yes.
Coltas?
Main Roads did say that in the context of the signage in the freeway, it's all related to the freeway infrastructure in terms of smart freeways, directional signs and so forth, whereas this one is not considered to be in that form. It's got another reason for it. What comment do you make about that?
Well, the sign is located on college land, and I'd still argue that the freeway is characterised by infrastructure signs, and this forms part of that characteristic.
Yeah.
If I could just add to that.
Tim, do you want to come and sit up so that we can get you on camera, being in a public meeting?
Sure,
Thank you.
The sign is actually in two parts. One is north facing, so it's south facing, southbound traffic, and so the southbound traffic is where you get the view of the landscape most particularly, and that's going to be a static sign for a quietness, and it's going to be turned off at a particular hour. So it's going to be a static uplit sign that turns off, and so that is just simply advertising the school. And the nature of that scenic reserve, any landscape character of that space only exists because of Aquinas being there. Had Aquinas not moved out to school and taken it up, that is not there. A lot of people don't know that Aquinas is there. So there's a general expectation that the school should be able to communicate to the public passing by on this scenic edge that they exist in that location. So that's the southbound traffic. The northbound traffic, you have to sit between three lanes of traffic heading north, looking across the train line, looking across all the other infrastructure, and then another three lanes of traffic before you see the sign. And that's when the view isn't important, and that's where the third-party sign will exist.
Yeah. The static sign just advertising the location of Aquinas. It's not a wayfinding sign or anything, is it? It's just saying Aquinas is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I was saying, I've dropped my son off at his school this morning, and they have a big sign out the front saying that they're there, and it's not in any way a wayfinding sign. It's just to let them know they exist.
And it's okay. All right, thank you.
Do you have other questions? No? Okay. Member Premji, you have some questions of the applicants?
Yes, just to the presenters. Did you look at any other locations?
Yes. Yep. There was all informed by visual analysis, and actually the sign has been in about 8 different locations, and that's probably an extrapolation, but there has been a number of different locations, and this location was specifically chosen through conversations with Main Roads, which Ben would be able to provide more information on in terms of where they said it sits most safely in terms of decision making and other things. But also in terms of where it could be perceived from, in terms of other the visual analysis that we have. So it actually has moved probably, I'd say, 20 metres back and forth along that sort of strip in terms of finding a location where it's best suited.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have other questions, Member Premji?
No, thank you very much, Presiding Member.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, please. The lava, the visual assessment that has been prepared, you will have noted from Main Road's second response that they believe there are still a number of issues that are unresolved relating to visual sensitivity, vegetation removal and operational considerations. Did you want to respond to those points that Main Roads has raised?
So I don't think there's any vegetation removal required to install the sign. And in terms of operationally, they confirmed there was no traffic safety issues associated with the sign in their second response.
So it suggests that although the southbound sign is proposed to be switched off by 10:30 p.m, this operational measure does not adequately address the broader impacts on the landscape character during daylight and evening hours. That's their response. I think their emphasis in their response at this point is from an amenity point of view, which obviously their Act and the recent guidelines on digital signage, which I think in May 25 address. So those are the points that they were suggesting unresolved. I just wondered what your response was to those points.
We updated our visual assessment report to address a lava. It is a new thing, and so we hadn't actually previously accommodated, but it has now been addressed from the visual analysis team, who spent a lot of time in SAT talking about visual analysis. So they set up their cameras very, very specifically, and all those sorts of technical things. And their view is that it meets the requirements of that policy.
Right. So there's just difference of opinion. Okay. With the lava that we've been presented with, I'm interested in how that assessment has determined that the view from Mount Henry Jetty, where you see the sign across the water and with the landscape backdrop, is regarded as low, versus an assessment of Deepwater Point, which is regarded as low to moderate. How has that distinction been made?
I wouldn't be able to answer that to you. It's the technical response that they've done, but they have specific criteria which they use to and so some of the points they set up are actually based upon where the best practice tells them to take those views from, and they've worked to a framework which they use across the board, wind farms, stockpiles, other things, and that's their considered view of the experts. So I haven't challenged them on that.
All right. Okay, well, I'll continue with my questioning. If you might not be able to respond, but you've talked about the sign being compatible, my word, compatible to the infrastructure and signage that's along the freeway corridor, but the sign is actually over the fence in private land, in the school's land, with a landscape backdrop. Do you see there being a perception that the character changes when you move over the fence and into a vegetated area? Do you see that being part of the visual perception?
I think you could perceive it from southbound traffic, but that's the traffic side that's only seeing a sign saying Aquinas are here, and all that exciting stuff you might not know what's on the side is Aquinas, that's the school. And that's raising the funds. If it's on the other side, I don't think you'll perceive it from the northbound traffic side, seeing across all the freeways exactly whether it's 1 metre one way or the other. There's actually this sign, whether it's in the freeway reserve or on soil land. I don't think you can perceive that.
You don't think that the perception of where it's located changes that visual information?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the same question you asked, but I don't think you'd be able to tell if it's in the freeway reserve or not, if that's the question you asked previously. But whether or not I think it is different from northbound and southbound, and we accept that, and that's why we changed to a static sign, only talking about this school, because it is perceivably on the school's land from that spot, but it was in the freeway reserve. For instance, the city signs policy wouldn't apply. And we don't think the policy was conceived in terms of thinking about things in the freeway reserve, because it doesn't apply. So why would they think about a freeway sign? This just happens to be on the university's land, other schools' land.
Yes.
One, so they can advertise themselves, and one, so they can fund the bursary program.
Okay.
Main roads could happily take the revenue and not apply the policy.
The other position that the LAVA takes is that because there's a lot of infrastructure on the freeway, that this is just another sign that's alongside the freeway, whichever side the fence is on, but that the visual character is made by the freeway signs, and that this is just another sign. But they're quite different signs, aren't they? This is providing different information. So, I mean, one can drive up a freeway and see a sign that says, direction this way or speed sign that way. It was quite different to sort of revolving advertising sign on, for the northbound traffic.
I agree.
They're quite different.
I agree, and so that's why we did change the southbound sign to be the static sign. But I do think if you drive down there, and if you remember when actually when the the Mandurah line went in, there was a huge amount of consideration, because everyone said, don't put all that stuff in the freeway reserve, because it's going to change the character of the reserve. The poles that hold up the power lines were turned into these Art Deco style things, because everyone said it's going to fundamentally change the reserve, and that's happened, and that's there, and that is now the character of the northbound train line.
Okay. The other question I have, and I will also ask the city, I think in your reports you're saying that the signs are 39.94 square metres, but the RAR is talking more around a little over 56 square metres. So can you clarify your measurement, or what you think the area of the signs are?
Yeah, do you want to? Robert's from Sign On, the director of Sign On, and he's the consultant, the contractor.
Hello. So basically, the sign area space is comprised of it's a pylon sign with two faces, and it's got a digital face on one side and a static face on the other side, and then two static signs underneath. The 39 square metres is the single face of a digital sign.
Right. but the overall sign and the whole sign's illuminated, is that correct? The static as well as the digital?
The static sign on the south, going south is a light box, and the area underneath is a static non-illuminated sign at the stage.
So the bit that says Aquinas Bursary is not illuminated?
To the best of my recollection, that's correct.
Right, okay, but on the
That
other.
will be in the drawings, I can't.
Yes, yes, that's why I was asking you the questions, because you're supposed to be the expert.
Yes.
All right, any other questions of the applicants at this point?
Just going
Member
back,
Coltaz?
yes, to the sign, why was it thought necessary to advertise Aquinas College on the static sign? Bearing in mind that people driving through there's no way of going to Aquinas to look. It's not a wayfinding sign or anything.
It's an awareness. Was there a demonstrable need for an awareness sign on the freeway? The school wants to promote itself, yes, and I could ask the principal to answer, but essentially, what we had was LED in both directions as third party. And then we had the conversations in a pre-lodgement setting where the officer said, well, it needs to be at least 50% content related to the school. And then the school contemplated that and thought that's actually something that they would like to have to raise awareness that the school exists there, because I went to a different school and so-called my enemy school, but I didn't really know they were there myself, and I've driven past 1,000 times. And so I think having awareness that the school exists there is something the school would enjoy.
Okay.
They're a citizen of the area. They want to show their connection to the area.
Okay, thank you.
Right, if there are no further questions, we can always come back to the applicant, but we'll let the applicant go back to their seats, and we will invite the officers of the city to come forward. Thank you. So we have Fiona Mullen, and is it Harry or Scott? Scott Van Ireland, thank you. Before we open for questions, were there any points of clarification or any matters that you wish to raise, having heard the questions previously?
I think the only point that I would make, which the applicant made in response to questions, was in relation to the monetary value of the sign, and that the money will be then fed back into the school. I would just state that the city does not consider that to be a material planning consideration in the assessment of the application. All right,
thank you very much. We'll open for questions. Councillor Cridland, did you have questions of the city officers?
I did, thank you. My first question is in relation to what's going to happen to build the sign if it is approved. There have been suggestions, at least in some of the submitters' comments, that there will be vegetation loss and tree removal. Is the city able to comment on whether or not there will be a loss of any trees, or a net loss of trees in particular?
Yep, thank you for the question through the chair. The information submitted by the applicant states that no trees are planned to be removed.
Was there any? I thought I saw a reference to planting as well. Are they planting additional trees?
Chair, yes, the applicant has confirmed that if approval is granted, they would plant additional trees, and that has been recommended as a condition should the application be approved.
My other question related to the comments from Main Roads, and there was one thing that I noted that I hadn't seen from them before, which is an interest in the impact, the development on the landscape character of the area of the road and around it. And I was wondering whether the city had ever seen such comments from Main Roads before.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of the city receiving such comments from Main Roads. However, they are obviously entitled to provide such comments. They have management of that road, so can provide such a comment. But I'm not aware of receiving comments in relation to the amenity.
Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Other panel members, Member Coltas.
Yes, there was mention made that to ensure compliance of the percentage of third-party advertising, how would you see that being enforced?
So, yeah, through Chair, the application is very clear in terms of the components of signage that relates to third party. A condition of determination basically says comply with the application that's put forward. So if there was any change or the increase in the third party content, then what has been endorsed, if it is approved by MIDAP, then that would be a matter for compliance for the city to follow up. But it is restricted in terms of the south-facing component of the sign for the highest point of the sign only.
Who's going to sit there and monitor the percentage?
Well, in terms of the city can complete an inspection once the sign is built to confirm that it has been constructed in accordance with the development approval. Following that, it's a relatively prominent structure. And we have a very active community. So if we do receive any complaints as any development goes ahead, we can investigate and take compliance under our scheme.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Member Premji, did you have questions of the city officers, please?
Yes, again, I go back to the question I asked the presenters. When the application was lodged with the city, did the city advise of any other locations that would have met the zoning and the policy 7.1?
Thank you through the chair. The city's no, there were no other discussions in relation to the location of the sign.
Okay, thank you.
I have some questions. The lava that was prepared in response to main roads requirements under the guidelines, which does cover matters of safety as well as amenity. Did the city review the applicant's lava?
Yes, the chair, we did review the lava. Obviously, we don't have the technical expertise in-house in which to do so, but we did review that. It was considered that the sign would be a prevalent structure, which would be highly visible, especially the city's concern was probably more to do with the impact on sensitive adjoining sites within the city itself rather than the broader context, specifically the residential properties to the north. We also reviewed in the context of the lava some of the submissions that were received, and there have been some submissions which have demonstrated photographically how the sign will be perceived from adjoining properties. The city considered those, the lava and the information provided by submissions, and we used that as well to come up with our position that the sign would have a relatively prominent visual impact.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Earlier, we had some commentary from the presentation that the city, perhaps through the dialogue pre-lodgement, had suggested that the signage might meet objectives of the zone. And we have in the RAR, the responsible authority recommendation is quite interestingly constructed with accepting the sign, but it says it may be consistent with the objectives of the zoning, and then you go on to recommend a refusal. Could you please explain your position in terms of both the applicant's commentary and the way that the responsible authority primary recommendation is constructed?
Certainly, I'll probably start with the primary recommendation, if that's okay. So in response to accept that the application may assess the applications that are put forward through to us, and as the application is effectively a discretionary land use for the site, it's not a X use, it's a use not listed, so the duty has a duty to consider the application that's been put forward. So the accept is accept that the application is capable of approval on the site, and then the city has gone through and completed an assessment following the application has been accepted and not rejected. For example, if you apply for an X use, for example, we say it's rejected because it's not capable of being considered.
I see. Okay.
And may I ask you to repeat your first part of the question? I'm sorry.
I think yes. You may not have answered it, but the first part of my question was that we had commentary from the applicant earlier that in discussions with the city, potentially pre-lodgement, that the city had indicated that this signage, third-party signage, would be would meet the objectives of the zone.
Thank you through the chair. Yes, I would confirm that the area of a minimum 50%, it was discussed with the applicants, that's correct. And at that stage, really, officers we were presented with an application type that I don't think we'd ever actually received. We were trying to consider it against the zone in which it was located. So it was a thought that if there was that percentage of the sign that would directly relate it to the site and the school, it could be considered. However, once the application was fully assessed, it was considered that no, it wasn't. It was contrary to the intent of the zone. But the city did certainly confirm.
Okay, all right. And I asked a question earlier on about this potential discrepancy. I've read the applicant's submission around describing the signage at just under 40 square metres, and then the RAR talks to it being a little bit over 56 square metres. I've just looked again, and obviously it's the illuminated area, not the non-illuminated area on each side that's at 40 square metres, whereas the overall sign, I believe, is 56 square metres. So what have you, how does your signage policy work in terms of the relationship to the overall size of the sign and the area illuminated, and how have you drawn the conclusions that you've drawn in the RAR recommendation regarding amenity? Is it to do with just the size overall, or is it to do with the illumination, or is it a combination?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So our signage policy requires us to basically consider the aggregate of the sign. So we've assessed each sign face individually as an independent component of the signage. And that's where we've taken our value from. So we've taken the aggregate area of the sign overall, being a hoarding sign facing north and a hoarding sign facing south. So we've considered each of those individually, but we have considered each of them as a hoarding sign, not a hoarding sign with third-party content and first-party content, for both, just the aggregate of the hoarding sign.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Any other questions of the city at this point? All right. Thank you very much. We'll let you go. So we will now move ahead and consider the item. I'll consider it in the order as it has been presented. And we have a responsible authority recommendation that we accept the use not listed, which may be consistent with the objectives of the zoning table, and second, to refuse the application for a number of reasons. Do I have a mover for that, please, as the primary motion? Member Coltas moves. Do we have a seconder, please, for that as the primary motion? I'll second. Member Coltas, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, I understand the aims of the signage from the school point of view. However, looking at it from a planning point of view, I'm not convinced that the static part serves any purpose, in the sense that it's facing a large infrastructure corridor, both train and vehicle, and it's an educational establishment that is well screened by the vegetation along the freeway. I think Aquinas College has a broad acceptance in today's society with its location. A number of schools I know that have got signage in front tend to be primarily, certainly smaller signs than this one, and if they're along a transport corridor, they're smaller and tend to be mainly static. Where they are, in my experience, where they are showing digital display, they tend primarily to be just for school activities as to what end of term and various things like that. I'm not convinced that along this corridor a sign for those purposes is necessarily required and achieves the objectives. Large digital signs advertising third-party content in most local authority schemes are permitted, and the signage is more modest, as I said, in terms of the location of them in my experience as well. The signs are, as I said, are much smaller. They tend to just be content related to the school. This sign has to be big to be read along a transport corridor with the speed of the vehicles that are going through there, and that's well understood. But I'm not convinced that in this location it's required. It's a stark feature along that vegetated strip of land that is part of the Aquinas College abutting the freeway, and the requirement to exercise discretion to not only increase the size of the signage under the council's policy from 18 to about 40 square metres. It's double the permissible signage, and also the height of it as well. To argue in my mind that there is a lot of infrastructure noise in the way of pylons for electric trains, the overpasses, the signage that's in the freeway, which is information signage for motorists and the trains. I think the regional nature of the transport corridor necessarily requires that, and I think the community accepts that. But to introduce, in my mind, what is an ad hoc sign abutting the freeway that affects the visual amenity of the backdrop of the vegetation, and also, illumination at night, I think is, in my mind, not acceptable. So therefore, I won't be supporting the signage.
Thank you, Member Coltas. I will speak to the motion as seconder. I concur with Member Coltas on what he has outlined. I think it's to start with. I think it's an admirable thing, obviously, to offer bursaries and understand that in some way the school needs to fund those. And this has been seen as an opportunity to not only advertise the bursaries, but also to provide some income for those bursaries through advertising. The way that the sign presents itself, however, it is of a significant scale, and being illuminated for more than 2/3 of its size, it really does, in my view, create quite a visual impact. I am surprised with some of the findings of the lava study. I would defer to the assessment made by others at the city and at Main Roads as to the adequacy or the outcomes of that study. But I do find, even from the information that lava study presents, and we have before us, that there is a visual impact and sensitivity, particularly from a couple of the 2 points presented at Deepwater Point and Mount Henry Jetty, and obviously that would include those residents that are from that area too. And that's really from the view from the north, looking at the face of the sign that's facing north from the northbound traffic, facing the more southern side of the sign. Obviously, there's a lot of activity going on there as signage is digitised and images change. And I see the location of it and the information that it is presenting to be quite different in character to the character of the freeway and the signage and infrastructure associated with traffic movement on the freeway. So I don't see that the character of the freeway necessarily sets a standard which would then enable signage on private land outside of the freeway reserve to be considered compatible in terms of the scale and the level of illumination that this sign is providing. It seems quite different and stands out against the landscape backdrop in which it is set. I do understand that Main Roads has no safety concerns and that the Public Transport Authority equally have no comment to raise. So I think it does come down to that issue of amenity and visual obtrusiveness or perception of visual significance. So on that basis, I'm quite comfortable with the way that the city has assessed in terms of the deemed provisions. I note that they have taken some consideration from the community responses. I think in terms of the way that they have assessed the sign in the context of their policy, referral agency comments, and their assessment of the visual aspects. I'm comfortable with that assessment at this point. Thank you. Other speakers for or against the motion? Member Premji?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member and Deputy Presiding Member. I concur with the comments that have been made so far. I am in support of the refusal of this particular application, and that being that I commend Aquinas for their bursary program. However, my concern is primarily from the location of the signage, and the reasons have been stated, and I agree with that. And my concern is it's out of character for a transport corridor, and as such, it needs to be revisited to see where it would be much more appropriate to locate it, and therefore gain the advantage that Aquinas is looking for. So on those grounds, I am in support of the RA recommendation.
Thank you, Member Premji. Councillor Cridland, did you wish to speak for or against the motion?
I would like to speak. However, I'm in the difficult position of I'm still making up my mind as I speak, because I think there are factors both ways on this particular matter, and I have taken into account the relevant material that we've been supplied, including the comments of the local residents, and I guess as the representative of the local council, that's why I'm here to, in particular, understand the impact on the locals of particular developments. And I thought some of their comments were very good, some of them misconceived and quite unusually, and in this case, some of them quite bigoted. And I've rejected those ones. It is not a reason to reject this, that you don't like this school or that you think somehow the children who go there come from rich private families. I simply reject that. I thought it was quite interesting that Main Roads said there were no safety concerns. To me, that is a little bit counterintuitive. I would have always thought an illuminated sign where people are going fast would be a safety concern, but that's not my area of expertise, and I know that there are very large advertising illuminated signs on the freeways and have been for some time. And I think that this sign is to be, and it is a large sign, is to be placed in a location which will be very different to the character that it is now, which is a headland, I guess, with some trees that have been kept and maintained by Aquinas. I also reject the comments that there will be a loss of vegetation or trees removed. So I don't take that into account, but I do think that there will be a visual obtrusiveness and impact to having the sign there, albeit in my view, much less than some of the far larger signs that go straight across the freeway. It will impact on that couple of seconds where you go past that bit of relief you have when you be as attractive to drive along there when you see this sign. However, there is also a community benefit in that sign being there, because it provides an ability for a school to provide needy families with an ability to get scholarships or bursaries so that their kids who don't come from wealthy families can go to the school. So I do take that one into account. I also take into account that when you're travelling north, you're already looking across many lanes of road or freeway. You're travelling quick, and you can possibly be seeing 2 trains as well. So it's hardly a beautiful view going north, but it will impact, I think, probably more going south. It's certainly not a wayfinding sign, but there are signs for other schools to indicate that they exist and they're there. And I think the sign has to be larger, because in my lay view, it probably would be unsafe if it was smaller, because people would be straining to see what is that sign that I'm just about to approach and go past. So, is the visual obtrusiveness of putting this large sign so inconsistent or so impactful that the application should be rejected? That is a very fine judgment call, in my view. And I think it's very positive that Main Roads have finally taken an interest in the landscape character of the freeway and the roads they are responsible for. And I do hope that they do the same for Manning Road and Canning Highway, because they are certainly could do with some of that landscape character attention. It is still line ball for me, and I realise I'm going to have to vote one way or the other within a few seconds. That's all I wish to say.
Very good, thank you. I return to Member Coltas as the mover for right of reply and closure of debate.
Just in the context of the application, I tend to endorse the fact that the aim of the signage is noble, and I think that all of us probably agree with that. The fact that the sign is demonstrating or a locational sign for Aquinas College, I still refute the fact that there's a necessity for a sign there. I think most of the school signs that I've seen, there's a backdrop and there's a school, there's infrastructure there which people would like to identify. In this case, I think most people driving along would see a sign saying Aquinas College, probably wouldn't even realise that Aquinas College is not there, or they already know that it's somewhere in that area, and the purpose of the sign, there's really no purpose for that sign in that location, and for all the other reasons that we've espoused in terms of its impact, etc. I just think that that's the reason why we're heading towards a refusal.
Thank you. Debate is closed. We'll put the matter to the vote. All of those in favour of the RAR substantive recommendation to refuse the application, please show of hands. That's a unanimous decision. Thank you very much. We will then just close out our agenda for today, noting that we have no Form 2 applications and no Section 31 SAT reconsiderations. This inner metro does have a number of matters in SAT at the moment, including for the City of South Perth, a matter for Coode Street, the 3-storey medical centre. That being the business of the day and there being nothing further, I would like to thank Councillor Cridland and the other panel members for their attendance and participation today. Thank the city staff and presenters for their contributions and Secretariat for their support, and close the meeting at 10:24 AM. Thank you.